Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, we're going to be talking about board selection for Volcano. So I have listed all 8 boards in Spirit Island. We have S, A, and C tier. So starting off at the very top, we have in S tier, we have board E, and I believe this is Volcano's best board. So just to recap, Volcano is going to start in one of the mountains on your board. You also put a Badlands there, and then you could push all Dahan from that land. So I really like board E because you can choose between your land 2 or your land 5. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. I prefer always starting in my land E5, and the main reason for that is because really we want to utilize Volcano's third special rule on the left, where it says volcanic peaks. Volcanic peaks tower over the landscape, and it says that your power cards gain +1 range if you have 3 or more presence in your volcano. And now that is very important because you want to position your volcano such that you can cover your whole board. And that's why I like my E5, because if I have a triple stack here, I now will have +1 range, which means I'll have 2 range, so I can access my lands, my E8 and my E6, and I'll be able to access that with any of the other defense. And you guys know that I love defensive cards, so cards like Nature's Resilience here, which is going to give us defense 6 at that 1 range. When we have a volcano here, it now has 2 range, and now I can defend these inland lands, and that's why I really like my land on starting on E5. Now, the advantage of starting in E2 is you can easily take out the city. Could be good against like Scotland, but I find it to be just a little bit too greedy. I think starting on E5 is just better. Also, starting on E5 lets me pair up my Dahan so that I'm able to play around the event cultural ASIM. And just to recap what that is, oh, I don't believe it pops up. Let's see if it does. No, and for some reason it doesn't come up whenever I found it instantly. But this is cultural ASIM, and it says on each board in a land with exactly 1 Dahan that is adjacent to a city, replace the Dahan with a town. And basically, this event is going to we're going to want to pair up our Dahan so that we can kind of play around this event. And once again, starting in E5 lets us easily pair up our Dahan. And just a couple things why board E is so strong. All of the benefits of board E, basically able to create that inland pocket very easily. The Dahan are all positioned very nicely. Just lots of benefits to board E. In addition, just regardless of the spirit, I know it's pretty much the best board for every spirit in the game, as you guys have seen in all of my guides. Some of the benefits that Volcano has on E5, in addition to what I've just mentioned, would be you can easily access your blighted land here. You can access your whole coast as well as your inland town, and I already mentioned being able to defend these lands. And the beast also covers E6. So board E, this is the board you want to pick. Okay, looking at board F here, still a very good volcano board. I like to start in F4 mainly because we have access to pretty much the whole board. Just like on board E, we get access to 6 lands when we start on our F4, as well as covering our blighted land and covering our weakened F3. We then also have all of our Dahan over here on E1, E5, and E6, so the Dahan can kind of cover those lands. The benefit to starting in E6 here is we get to push out the Dahan, which allows us to very easily pair up our Dahan, maybe to F5 and then to F1, or maybe both to F1. You guys get the point. Another benefit to starting in F4 is we can easily access that F2 land. So, and same thing, just like on board E, you want to be in a land that can kind of reach your whole board once you have that triple stack. So once we have that triple stack on F4, we can access F1 and F6 with our, well, not with our defend when we draft a defend. So looking at board A, now we're entering A tier, and these are just slightly weaker boards. I have board A here. I actually really like playing board Volcano on board A. It's really enjoyable. Very similar to board E and board F. When you start in that land A1, you'll have 2 range to all of your lands, and you have Dahan on both A3 and A7. So if you draft defense, you can have the Dahan cover those lands. Really, the only weakness on board A is this land A8, which you have pretty much no way of dealing with it until you move into your A6, which generally doesn't happen until the mid game. I really like board A against Russia because you get to start in that beast land, and that's very, very important so that you can easily destroy the explorers when Russia escalates into that beast land. You also get to easily access A2, and then on A1, you're adjacent to 4 lands, including your blighted land. So I would always start in my A1, never my A6. And looking back on board E and board F, board F is a very brutal Russia board, and board E is okay. I really like board A the best against Russia if I'm playing Volcano. Board B, we can either start on the coast or on land 7. I think board B is the one board where I think it's about 50-50 on where you start. I really like starting on F7, but I think there's a strong argument to also starting on B2. It just depends on the approach you would like to take. One of the benefits you get for starting on B7 is like I mentioned on board F, is you get to push that Dahan. You can either pair up your Dahan on B8, or you can throw that Dahan into B5 or B4, and then with a card like Rain of Ash, you can try to push that Dahan into your B1 and to pair up your Dahan like that. Um, but yes, I really like B7 as my starting land. I'm trying to think if there's anything else on this board. Um, yeah, this is pretty much just a 50-50 on what you would like or where you would like to start. Maybe more adversary dependent. I think if it's Scotland, I'll probably start on B2, or England, I would start on B2. Um, and if it's Russia, I believe you have a beast here on B8 and B5. So yeah, probably B7 if you're playing against Russia. Sweden, you have a city and town here, so unfortunately it doesn't really help as much against Sweden. Actually, maybe we'll probably start in B2 against Sweden. But okay, moving to the next board, we have board C. Um, always. So now we're entering the weaker set of boards. Um, really, what makes these boards weaker is you pretty much have one choice for starting. Uh, there's pretty much only one good land to start in on that board. I know board A has that A6, but the rest of the board is so well put together. Um, board C, you pretty much have to start in your C7 here. Um, Starting in C3 is pretty bad. I know you get to push the Dahan, but you're only adjacent to 2 lands, and you cannot access your C6 or your C8 because those are going to be 1, 2, 3 zones away, and that's just way too far. So, pretty much if you're playing on board C, you're going to be starting in the C7, and it is nice. You do get to hit quite a lot of lands, and you do have 2 range from your C3 and your C1. But dealing with this coastal city land or any of your coastal lands is going to be fairly challenging. Usually, I like to start in a land where I can easily erupt to kill those coastal buildings. And you have a very similar problem on board B, but the one benefit you get on board B is you can easily have a presence in your B2, so you can deal with that city land. On board C, you have to grow into a land with Dahan, and it's kind of awkwardly placed. Okay, looking at the next bottom boards, and these are I basically have this as C tier, and these are 3 boards that I never want to pick as Volcano. Starting off, we have board D, and board D is just a very bad board for a lot of spirits, and it's also very bad for Volcano. You definitely cannot start in your D8. D8 is just a lost cause. You're only adjacent to 2 lands, so you're forced to start on D5, and you do get to push out the Dahan, which is nice. You can pair up all of your Dahan. The big problem here is you're 2 range away from your D3, and you're 2 range away from your D8, and both of these lands have no Dahan in them. So if you look up here, when we were talking with board E, your lands over here on E8 has 2 Dahan, that's 2 away, and your beast land is your other land that's 2 away. So you have outs for board D. Yes, you have a beast over here, but you don't have a beast on D8, so there's no out on D8 to actually solve it outside of growing into that land. And D3 is on the coast, so it's twice as likely to come up during stage 2, so it's twice as likely to be a problem than a land like E6, for instance. Board D is probably not the worst. I mean, you do get to start in a blighted land, so you could probably make this board work. The next two boards we're about to talk about are just completely terrible. Just never pick them. Um, in a lot of my videos, I say Volcano or whatever spirit I'm playing can play on any board. These Horizon boards, just never pick them with Volcano. So let's take a look. So we have board G and we have board H. Starting off with board G, you have this awkward spot here on G1 or this spot on G8. I currently am picking G8 here to start because at least I can access 3 lands instead of board G where I only can access I guess 2 lands, but I am on the coast, so there's a benefit to that. I've never played Volcano on board G, so I'm not sure how it plays out. If I were to start off on G1, I do get to push the Dahan nicely to G2, and then possibly I can get them to my G3. Now, the big problem that you're going to find on board G as well as board H is there's 2 lands that the Volcano cannot touch because it's 3 range away. And that is, so if you start in G8, that 3 range away is your G3, 1, 2, 3. And if you start in your G1, your G7 is 3 away as well. And the reason why that is important is because that means you're significantly limited on the amount of tools you can use to affect those lands. So like Nature's Res no longer can defend that problematic land on G3. Now, it's not like you're going to auto lose because you picked one of these boards. It just means that the chance of losing is going to be higher because if that edge case comes up where this land keeps popping up, well, now you just don't really have the tools to actually deal with that land. And now if we get to board H, I'm very sure that board H is your worst board. You either start on H3 and you're adjacent to 3 lands, and then your C8 is 3 away, or you start on H4 and you're also adjacent to 3 lands, but then your H1 is 3 away. Now, if you start on your H3, you don't have adjacency to H7, which is a town land that can get out of hand, but you can access your H2. If you start on your H4, it's just the flipped. So we've gone through all the boards. Hopefully you guys can see what I'm talking about and why board E and board F are so strong and why boards like G and H are fairly weak. If you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. Actually, so one last thing before I wrap this up. Just another thing, if you ever decide to do that middle eruption, that 6 presence eruption, you want your volcano to be centralized. And a lot of these other boards, you can get a centralized volcano, right? You have that A6, you have that T5, you have your E5. Look at board G, look at board H. Your centralized volcano is just so awkward. So just something to point out. So if you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I'll see you guys in the next video.